Hey everyone, so I got a lot of feedback for my video yesterday about robots taking people's jobs. Like, a lot of feedback. And I really wasn't expecting it to be this of a divisive issue, but it apparently hit a lot of people's buttons, so I want to respond to some of the more common criticisms that I received on that video. Now, the main point I want to get into is that robots can't replace men. Before I get into that, I want to knock out some of the more minor complaints that I've heard. So one of the big criticisms was that as robots take people's jobs and workers are displaced, they're not going to have anything to do, they're going to start rioting and looting and committing crimes. This has happened before twice in the last 100 years. This isn't exactly, theory. We've seen this happen. When people who worked on farms had to go work in the factories, they had to get training, they were unemployed for a while, and it worked out. They figured shit out. And then when the factory started closing down and people had to move into service-related jobs, they figured shit out too. Now, there may be room for some sort of government program, some kind of job placement thing to help unemployed workers who've lost their jobs. The big thing that I know affects this is homeownership. But what would happen is these guys would work at a factory and they would lay down roots in this town where the entire economy ran based on this factory. And then when the factory went to China or whatever, they would lose their jobs, and now their homes were worthless because no one wanted to live in this town where there were no jobs. And then they'd be stuck in the house. They wouldn't be able to move in order to go where the jobs were because they were stuck in this ghost town, essentially. Now, this isn't new. People did this all the time. So, back in like the Civil War era, you had ghost towns. You had these people would start a mine, the mine would be profitable, a town would spring up, and then when the mine went dry, the town went dead. That's what ghost towns are. There's nothing wrong with a ghost town, just get rid of your house. Now the problem is the government inflates the value of housing by restricting zoning and where people can build houses and making it much more expensive to buy and own a house. If you just look at the historical price of houses, the houses are way overpriced. In fact, like the housing bubble in 2008 was kind of a good thing. It made homes more affordable for people. But of course the government threw a bunch of money to make sure that they didn't stay affordable, which is really unfortunate. The problem with that is people who own houses don't want to see the value of their house go down because they think of housing as an investment. My point is, in that area, it's pretty much all the government's fault. It's the government that restricts housing. It's the government that keeps people from being mobile. It's the government that makes housing so expensive that you're basically planted in one place for your entire working life, essentially. That's the government's fault. That's not robots' fault. That's not progress's fault. That's not technology's fault. It's the government's fault. So, and I noticed a theme in a lot of the criticisms was about the government, this other stuff, and how robots are going to affect us. Yes, the current paradigm is dysfunctional, and it's going to become more dysfunctional as robots eliminate certain jobs. But that's not robots' fault. That's no reason to stop the progress. That's no reason to kind of put the brakes on innovation and stay where we are because the system might get worse. You change the system. Get rid of these bullshit zoning laws. Stop making housing hundreds of thousands of dollars when it shouldn't be. Open land up. There's all kinds of things we can do to make housing more affordable, but the government is in the way. If you look at the price of food over time, the price of food has plummeted. Food has never been cheaper. However, housing has stayed roughly the same and in fact has gone up. That's because the government restricts housing. As we develop new ways to grow more food with the same amount or less resources, food becomes cheaper. But the government restricts how we can use land. And that's the problem. So that's the government. That's not robots' fault. You don't blame the robots for what the government does or refuses to do. Now, another criticism I heard was related to artificial intelligence. A lot of people are concerned that these robots or these computer programs are going to take the jobs of even the creative sector. So basically people who are artists or engineers or whatever wouldn't be safe because the robots and the computers would be able to create and innovate just as much as a human being. That's total horseshit. Total horseshit. A robot can't do anything outside of its programming. You have to program things in. Now, a robot, or a computer program rather, can be programmed with a random number generator. This is how things like Minecraft, when it's generating the terrain, and it makes a random number, and based on those parameters, it generates terrain like, grass and water and stuff like that. Now, in a way, you could argue that that's art, that this computer program is creating this randomized terrain map, and it's original, it never repeats itself, so that's art. That's not abstract thought. You can write a program to have a robot play chess or have a robot compose music because there's finite rules for chess and for music. Like someone noted this computer program that can compose a piano song. There's certain rules to music. And if you program a robot with chords and a knowledge of musical structure, and then it just randomly rolls, it can create a song. That doesn't mean it's capable of abstract thought. You can't take a random number generator and apply it to abstract thought. A computer can only do what it's programmed to do. You have a computer program that plays chess, and that's it. You have a computer program that can generate maps for Minecraft, and that's it. You can't have a computer program that invents new things from nothing with no set parameters. That's completely outside the realm of possibility for a computer program. Now, what you're talking about isn't artificial intelligence. We have artificial intelligence now. If you play a video game, all the NPCs that are controlled by the computer are artificial intelligence. The whole point of artificial intelligence is to get the program to act similarly the way that a human would act. If they act believably human, then the artificial intelligence is considered good. If they stand around, run into each other, whatever, then the artificial intelligence is considered bad. But all artificial intelligence is a series of commands based on parameters within a set number of variables. So if the player does X, the NPCs respond by doing Y. That's all artificial intelligence is. You can't factor all the limitless ways that a human being can choose to interact beyond the parameters set in the game. I'm very pessimistic and fatalistic when it comes to humans, but I'm very optimistic when it comes to robotics and technology. We're basically operating on a very old operating system. Our instincts are designed to make sure that the species keeps reproducing, even to the detriment of men. And there's not a lot we can do about these instincts because they're hardwired into us. A computer or a robot doesn't have that. There is no, you make a robot and they all do this. A robot can do anything you want. They're not limited. There's no robot nature. They can do anything you program them to do. So if we could do that with humans, we could just eliminate almost every problem that we face, because we wouldn't have these instincts and these natures that cause us to do things that may have been beneficial in the past, but no longer benefit us now. We could adapt our natures to suit the current purpose. And we can't do that with humans, but we can do that with robots. The whole fear of an artificial intelligence causing robots to rise up and kill everyone, because robots don't have any sort of motive or goal or thing. They just do what they're told. So you tell the robot to do something, it doesn't have any sense of self-preservation. It has no instincts. Its instincts are what the programmer programs the robot to do. If you program a robot to protect itself, like an NPC in a video game, if you shoot an NPC, they'll take cover, they'll return fire. That doesn't mean they have a survival instinct. They're just responding as an NPC in a video game to what the player's doing within the set variables that they were given when they were programmed. That's it. They don't have instincts. They do what they're told. Unless someone programmed the robots to take over the world, they're not going to take over the world. And here's the thing, people are worried about, the robots turning against humans. There are already human hackers that can take over robots. So that could happen now. You don't need artificial intelligence to have robots go haywire, you just need a computer virus. It's kind of like we already have that problem, but we're managing it through things like cybersecurity. And we can handle that too. It's not even an issue. It's not. Okay, and the main issue I want to talk about is why robots cannot replace men specifically. I made a video a while ago about how robots will replace women in the workplace, and that's because women's work is by definition low skill. It's not just sexual dimorphism. I mean, a woman's brain is only about 10% smaller than a man's. Problem is, because women have babies, they drop out of the workforce and they accrue less experience, they develop less fine skills. And because they develop these fine skills at a lower rate than men, they go into more low skill fields, and those fields are going to be the ones that are going to be automated first because they're easier. Now, to understand robots, you just have to look around. I mean, there's robots everywhere. Your automatic toilet is a robot. Your dishwasher is a robot. It performs a function that you don't have to do manually anymore. The robot does it for you. But if you notice, all of these robots only perform one function. You see in like these sci-fi movies, these robots, that are androids, and they're wearing like hard hats and they're building buildings like a human would. That doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't spend $1 million developing a human android to do construction work. You would develop 100 different robots. that would perform one function and one function only. Like if you go to these car plants that have these robotic arms that weld the cars together, each individual robot does one thing over and over again. Robots are perfect for repetitive tasks, repetitive low-skill tasks. What would make more sense? You know, you have an automatic toilet that flushes automatically. You have a thing inside the toilet that automatically cleans it between uses. You have an automatic kind of a Roomba that comes out and cleans the floors. You have an automatic thing that cleans the sinks and the mirrors. You have like a dozen robots going off on this bathroom just to clean one bathroom. Or you could make like an android that's like a robotic janitor. You know, in the end, it's pretty much the same thing, but if you look at it from a cost perspective, it's much cheaper to do the former than the latter. It would be much cheaper for the person to just have a bunch of small robots in the bathroom doing a bunch of little things than having one android do everything. It would be more efficient too. And the important thing is these little tasks, they're simple, low-skill tasks. I mean, nobody goes to the bathroom, doesn't flush, and then when they see the toilet flush itself, says, oh, the robots are taking my job. You know, they're flushing the toilet for you because people don't flush the toilet. You know, they're cleaning the toilet for you because people don't clean the toilet. They're doing these very simple, repetitive, low-skill tasks. That's what they're good at. Some people like to throw robotics and computer programs together, and they talk about things like doctors and stockbrokers being replaced by robots. No, they're not. They're being aided by computer programs. A stockbroker can see what like the Sharpe ratio, what the beta is on a bunch of stocks that are automatically analyzed by a computer program, and he can create a portfolio. Or a computer program can recommend a portfolio based on the stocks with the highest values in certain categories. That's not the same as replacing a stockbroker, because even if they have a good portfolio, it's all just based on numbers. Things that can't be quantified in numbers that the stockbroker might know or might have a hunch on. And that's the other thing, intuition. Not only can robots not use abstract thought, they have no intuition. They can't just think of something and, you know, have it click. Robots can't do that. They can only do what they're programmed to. So in the case of doctors and stockbrokers, yes, they have these computer programs that help them with diagnoses, but they can't think intuitively. They can't think abstractly. They can't have hunches. You know, that's a lot of things only humans can do. So those jobs are not going anywhere. They just will be assisted by computer programs. Stockbrokers aren't losing their jobs to robots. Instead of having a bunch of people doing research, you can have the computer program doing the research. But the research part of stock analysis is extremely boring, and nobody wants to do that. And the people who do that are usually really underpaid, like assistants anyway. They're not the people that you would actually think of as these stockbrokers. They're just people in the background, you know, looking up financial reports and recording the numbers in order to be run through a computer program anyway. As those computer programs become more advanced, as these records become searchable online, they don't have to be actually viewed and downloaded or have them typed into a computer. These people maybe are losing their job, but they're low-skill jobs anyway. And then they just move on to something better. Anyway, so the last thing I want to talk about is how robots can't replace men. If you remember that robots can only really serve one function well, and that's pretty much the end of their use, you can see how men are irreplaceable, especially to women. Now, what services, what functions do women provide to men? Basically, sex. That's all they provide to men. So that's why women, you know, are so intimidated by these sex bots, because they know that if a man can get his sexual needs met based on a robot, he's not going to put up with her shit, which is really sad. It speaks a lot for the woman. I'm actually going to include a link to a Teal Deer video where he talked about this. He did a really good job, so I'm just going to link to that video if you want to know more. If you think what men provide to women, what functions do they serve? They don't serve a sexual function only the way women do. I mean, they can, but that's probably like the third function they serve. It's like number 3. The top services that a man provides to a woman are he protects her from threats, and he provides money to her and resources to her so she can, you know, be pregnant, nursing, and raise offspring. Because a woman really can't do that. You have the feminists saying that, you know, you can be a strong, independent woman, you can do it everything, but that's total horseshit. When a woman gets pregnant, especially when she's about to pop, she can't work. She's too much physical pain. When she's nursing, she's tired from the baby crying, all that stuff, she can't work. The only women who can actually be true, independent, single mothers are these actresses that make millions of dollars making movies, and they hire nannies to raise their kids for them. They're the only independent women out there. All these strong, independent single mothers are all on welfare. They're all on welfare, getting free shit from the government paid for by men. They're not independent at all. Women need men. They cannot survive. They especially can't reproduce. Maybe a woman who's sterile and can never have kids can technically be independent, but a woman who wants to have a family, wants to raise children, needs a man. Now, if you look at their functions, I mean, women have had vibrators forever. A woman has already replaced a man's sexual function if you want to limit it to that. So a woman's vibrator, a man's already been replaced by a robot decades ago. Now, protection can be handled through some sort of security system. Now, I'm not talking about Terminator robots. There's just like the doctor and the stockbroker, there's too many variables to program into an android when it comes to being a soldier or a law enforcement officer. That's just, there's too many things, too many variables in what a police officer does or a soldier does to make that into a robot. It wouldn't even be cost effective. I mean, think about it. I mean, soldiers aren't paid that much. In order to make a cybernetic or robotic soldier viable, it would have to be cheaper to buy this android that has such sophisticated hardware and software that it's cheaper to build that robot than to have a human soldier. Now, with drones, all they do is fly around and with a camera on them, or sometimes they drop a bomb. That's it. And they're actually remote controlled. Sometimes they're automated, but for the most part, they're just remote controlled planes. A far cry from an android or robotic soldier that walks around, shoots a gun, can hike up this, can do this. You know, there's just too many things a soldier has to do. It's not limited to one function the way a drone is. So it's apples and oranges. But anyway, so hypothetically, you could replace a man's security function with some sort of security system and like a host of robots. Maybe one that automatically calls the cops, like those necklaces that I fall and I can't get up necklaces. You can have a robot that, you know, automatically shoots pepper spray. You know, you could have all these robots around that can protect the woman from threats the way a man would. So we can safely eliminate 2 of the 3 primary functions of a man. So a woman could replace a man's sexual function and his security function. She cannot replace his provision function at all. And it will never happen. There's nothing she can do about it. There's nothing robots can do about it. There's nothing the government can do about it. And here is why. A woman needs a man to provide her with resources. Needs a man. There's no alternative than a man. However, if she has a robot that goes out and works, no one is going to pay a robot to do work when they can buy their own robot. When a man goes to work, he's essentially renting his labor to a company or a customer or whatever if he's independent. It doesn't matter. He's renting his labor. So at best, a woman who has a robot can rent the robot's labor out to other people. I mean, they may hire you, but the problem is they can also buy their own. So you have to undercut basically them renting from other people and then buying their own robot. She's not going to make any money at all. You know, you need a man to actually do the things that only humans can do. Robots, because they work for free, you're not going to be able to earn a lot of money from them. A woman cannot support herself by renting out her robot. It just doesn't make any sense. So women continue to need men. Now, the way women get resources from men is through their pussies. However, robots aren't interested in your pussy. Only men are interested in your pussy. So you need men to do all of your stuff and to provide you with resources. You need men. And then you see the bullshit with single motherhood, the crime rates and all the monsters they're raising because there's no father in their life. Women need men, period. And they will always need men. They cannot be replaced with a robot because robots can never provide for a woman. They can do certain work, but they can't provide money and resources to a woman. So where's the woman going to get the resources she needs in order to raise her offspring? Now, the final thought I want to make, the final point I want to leave with you, is that having robots take these jobs actually helps lessen male disposability. One of the big things about male disposability is men are expected to go out and do all these hard jobs, all these dangerous jobs, because, you know, sexual dimorphism blessed us with larger and stronger bodies as well as sharper minds. All the producing in society is done by men. Lumberjacks, fishermen, they die all the time and they're all men. However, if you had robots doing these jobs, men wouldn't be losing their lives so much. All these workplace deaths that affect men vastly more than women, like not even close, not even worth mentioning. You'd have robots being trapped in coal mines and crushed by trees and lost at sea, as opposed to men doing that. But what I find curious is the way men are seemingly embracing their disposability. They want to kind of arrest progress in this area because they're worried that if they lose their jobs, if they lose their ability to produce and be exploited by society, to be disposable utilities for society, that they become expendable. You know, you gotta get out of that. That's, I mean, you've been indoctrinated to think that your existence is based on what you do and what you buy. You know, that's not. You are more than your job. You are not your job. You are not the stuff you buy. Oh, now, the last point I want to make before I go is people were concerned about, you know, what happens to the people who can't be retrained, who can't do these new jobs, who can't enter this new sector, they're just not capable. Well, I mean, it's like that all the time. You know, when people went from farming to the factories, I'm sure there were people who maybe, you know, they were retarded or something like that. They couldn't work in a factory. They could only work in the fields. They weren't cut out for factory work. And they lamented that all these farm jobs were gone. But you know what? Whatever. They either figured it out or they went away. Who cares? I mean, it doesn't matter to me. Now, and then when the factory shut down, people figured it out or they went away. And when the service jobs go away, people are going to figure it out or they're going to go away. Everyone thinks that this time it's different. Oh, I mean, when you have the benefit of hindsight, when you can clearly see that when we switched from an agricultural economy to a manufacturing economy, we were better off. And even though some people lost their jobs, we moved forward and people figured shit out. And when we went from a manufacturing economy to a service economy, we were better off. Now, some people who lament the loss of these factory jobs think we should go back, but they don't understand how economics works. But when you don't have the luxury of hindsight, when you're looking at the unknown, even though this is the third time it's happened in the last 100 years, this isn't exactly uncharted waters, but because it's the future, people don't know what's going to happen, and their fear of the unknown causes them to fear change. So I just invite you to just get over it. You know, the change is going to happen. The government's going to fuck it up. The government fucks everything up. But you have to kind of bake that into the cake. They're probably going to fuck it up, but they'll adapt. We will adapt as a species, and our governments will adapt in turn. There's going to be some growing pains, just like there were growing pains in the Industrial Revolution. There were growing pains in the 90s with the dot-com. I mean, there's going to be ups and downs. But at the end of the day, when it's all over, when we look back on it, we see the explosion of our standards of living. We see how people are living and all these new miracles happening all the time and how better our lives are. We're going to be better for it. You know, you're not going to want to get in the time machine and go back to the 1950s so you can go work in a factory, or the 1850s so you can go work on a farm. You're not going to want to go back to these ages where you had to work these menial shitty jobs just to put food on your plate. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I hope that answers some of the more common concerns and criticisms I heard. I probably missed a couple. So thank you for your time and have a good day.